Again, our speakers are Zan Fredericks and George Heleine of the USGS. You probably know the USGS for their signature map series, those 1 to 24,000 scale famous topographic maps, which pretty much everybody's used, especially before the internet, but still they're, the USGS is also a primary source for a lot of GIS data. These days they maintain the national map, the national elevation data set, and a whole lot more. Zan Fredericks is coming to us from, I was going to say St. Petersburg, but actually it turns out she's in Southwest Georgia. She is the National Map Liaison to Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands for the National Geospatial Program. And then George is coming to us from the Jackson, Mississippi area, where he's the National Map Liaison to Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee for the National Geospatial Program User Engagement Office. Please join me in welcoming Zan and George.
Well, thank you so much for that, Rob. George and I really appreciate this opportunity to provide a 3D elevation program overview and especially a Tennessee update. The USGS is the nation's largest water, earth, and biological science and civilian topographic mapping agency. And over the decades, the topographic products and the services offered, you mentioned some of them, and the means by which they were developed have changed so many times. They've changed based on expectations by users changing, the different societal and mission needs changing, and also new technologies. Through 5 mission areas, the USGS provides impartial and unbiased information on the health of our ecosystems and environment, the natural resources the country relies on, the natural hazards that threaten the nation. The core science system mission area provides a foundation for all USGS mission areas. And we do that by conducting basic and applied science research and development. We foster broad understanding and application of analyses and information. We also provide technical expertise in standards and methods. We work hard to build partnerships because that helps facilitate innovation. And especially important to this group, we create new geospatially enabled data and information, and then we gather it all, we assemble it, and then we provide a framework for data and information sharing. One of the programs within the core science system mission area is the National Geospatial Program. And it really provides a foundation of digital geospatial data representing the topography, the natural landscape, and the man-made environment of the United States. NGP products and services can be incorporated to aid in decision-making and operational activities. And these derivative products and services are developed by working with partners and organizations whose activities align with those of the NGP. One of those activities was defining the nation's elevation strategy. And the USGS has this long history of providing elevation data. First, it was through contours on the topographic maps, right? And later by digital data in the national elevation data set that you mentioned. And now it's through the 3D elevation program. But let me back up to the National Enhanced Elevation Assessment, or the NEEA. It was a needs and benefits study of federal, state, local, tribal, and private entities focused on high resolution terrestrial elevation data. It was conducted back in 2012, and it allowed us to rank the top business uses of LiDAR data by the total benefits identified by participants. And it was this assessment that served as the impetus to the 3D elevation program. Now, some of the business uses included are especially important to Tennessee, such as flood risk management. That had the highest national dollar value and reported benefit, and FEMA has been a big partner and supporter of the 3D elevation program. Now, LiDAR is useful to infrastructure management. With our aging national infrastructure, that's a big concern. Geologic hazards is a critical application area for LiDAR. It can be used to map landslides or previously unmapped faults. It also helps detect air navigation obstacles for aviation safety. Other applications include precision forestry and archaeology, wildfire management planning, response, as well as alternative energy. You can use it to map solar potential. Now, these are just some of the few important uses of 3-depth LiDAR and why this effort is so important and why this collaboration, especially with Tennessee, is critical and for the nation at large as well. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the technology, LiDAR is like radar or sonar, but instead of using radio waves or sound waves, LiDAR uses light. Airborne LiDAR data are collected from aircrafts by using sensors that detect the reflections of a pulse laser beam, and the reflections are recorded as millions of individual points collectively called a point cloud. And these represent the 3D positions of objects on the Earth. And these objects can be buildings or vegetation or infrastructure, but it can also be the ground. LiDAR is transforming mapping by providing both highly accurate maps of the Earth's surface and three-dimensional data of all the natural and man-made features on that surface. The 3D elevation program is our effort to provide national terrestrial elevation data. And this plan was vetted across the community and published in the 2014 3-depth call for action. Our goal is to acquire national LiDAR coverage by 2023 with IFSAR data in Alaska. Now, IFSAR data is a type of radar. It has lower accuracy and less detail than LiDAR, but it's preferred in an area like Alaska because it can penetrate cloud cover and you can operate it from planes that are flying higher and faster. So it's really good for really large collections and those in remote or challenging environments that Alaska poses. We believe 3-depth is transformational because it applies groundbreaking LiDAR data to provide not only a higher resolution bare Earth elevation surface, but also three-dimensional data of all the natural and constructed features. Now, the program also calls for increasing the quality level. That's the sample density and the accuracy of the LiDAR data because it can meet so many more mission-critical applications. As the program matures and additional data become available, program participants are discovering new and innovative ways to use the data. The applications I'm showing here represent data uses within the USGS where each of the USGS mission areas have explored and discovered uses of LiDAR data to support their missions. But the USGS isn't alone in our widespread use of the data. Each of the agencies contributing funding to the program have similarly discovered the value of the data and they're experiencing an incredible return on investment for the dollars they've committed to the program. 3-depth is a collective effort to develop partnerships to fund the program and accelerate the rate of acquisition to enable these benefits on a national level. 3-depth is absolutely built on partnerships. And there are two paths for LiDAR data acquisition. USGS and other federal agencies can use interagency agreements. And then the broad agency announcement is the vehicle for soliciting partnerships from non-federal partners. It's a fair and equitable process that allows state, local, tribal, even private organizations to propose data acquisition projects. And together, these two acquisition streams form the 3-depth acquisition plans for the year, and they really provide visibility to the broadest stakeholder community possible and further that opportunity. So federal, state, local governments, tribes, academics, private sector, they're all eligible and partners can propose to use the USGS Geospatial Products and Services contract or their own contracting vehicles. And that's where George and I come in, because the national map liaisons assist partners with the process, and we work to coordinate these partnerships. Now, the FY21 BAA awards will be announced soon, as early as next week. So keep an eye on the 3DEP BAA webpage, and they'll be posted there soon. If you're curious about how projects are selected to be included in the BAA, there are quite a few considerations that are made. The federal requirements are considered to look for overlapping interests so that acquisition funds can really be prioritized. Areas with no LiDAR coverage are prioritized, as are areas where the existing data is more than 8 years old or a lower resolution. Areas where significant changes to the landscape have occurred, if it's a dynamic environment. That's, sometimes those need to be captured more frequently, or again, to reflect that dynamic nature. The aerial extent is also a factor. 3DEP prefers projects between 1,500 and 5,000 square miles, with preference given to larger projects. And also the technical approach is considered. Projects making use of the Geospatial Products and Services Contract, or GIPSY, as their acquisition mechanism seem to receive full score for the technical approach, but applicants can propose to manage their own contract, but they need to describe how they'll be acquiring the data, and they'll be evaluated on that approach and also evaluated on the project deliverables. Now, all of this information is input into the BAA proposal ranking process so that funding can be directed to the locations that meet the needs of both federal and non-federal partners. Collaboration is absolutely key in 3DEP. And this page explains that the federal agency and stakeholder areas of interest will be made available for viewing through SeaSketch. Now, don't be misled by the name SeaSketch. NOAA started this tool focusing on the nation's coast and offshore areas, but it has grown to include the inland areas. So it now represents the entire nation. And the 3DEP working group ensures that all the federal requirements are documented in SeaSketch. And they also encourage everyone in the community to use the public areas of interest collector tool to document where you'd like data. By clicking on the proposed area box on the right, you can follow the instructions given on the page to leverage the project collector tool. And then the page even links to a video tutorial about how to use the tool. And if you're interested, you're encouraged to share your potential projects that you're considering in the next few years. And then once they're submitted and processed, the areas will appear in SeaSketch. You'll be able to find them and see them under the first category. So once you go over to SeaSketch, you turn on Mapping Priorities Proposed, and then navigate to that topographic LiDAR 3DEP areas of interest. And then select the state, local, academic, other 3DEP areas of interest. And in this map, we've got it in light orange hatching. So I've additionally turned on the mapping projects planned and the ongoing topographic LiDAR layers. And I did that so you can see that SeaSketch can really be leveraged for collaboration, right? If you're doing a mapping data acquisition, it's a great tool for finding partners because you can come in and see if there's an adjacent area, click on it, and there's metadata in there. So a point of contact, what data they're interested in collecting, what quality level, and additional information. Now, you can also use SeaSketch to determine if elevation data already exists over your area of interest. So if you enabled some of those boxes at the bottom right of the legend list, you could see some of the existing data inventories, and those are pulled directly from the US Interagency Elevation Inventory. Now, the USGS maintains this inventory, it's also known as the USIEI, in partnership with NOAA to keep track of publicly available elevation data. And it's updated annually, so it can be a really critical tool for planning. And I just visited it earlier this week and zoomed to Tennessee. And then I filtered by topographic data sets that are complete and meet 3DEP requirements. And immediately 12 data sets were listed as being available with their associated dates. Now, if I'd clicked on a data set name, I'd have been able to see more metadata. So I could see where I could access the data, or the collection date, or the quality level. Does it meet 3DEP standards? And if not, why not? The project status, that's really important. Again, I filtered by complete projects, but you could also look to see what projects are in progress. The vertical and horizontal accuracies are listed, the point spacing, the datums, right? Both the horizontal and vertical. Again, it really provides enough light metadata to quickly assess if this data will be useful to you. So if you want to get involved in 3DEP acquisition, really there are 3 steps. First, check to see if data already exists in your area of interest. Use the USIEI or SeaSketch. Second, coordinate, form partnerships, right? Federal agencies can contact their 3DEP working group member. State and local agencies can use SeaSketch to identify potential partners, and reach out to George. He's your national map liaison. He's a great resource. Third, submit a BAA proposal to apply for 3DEP funding. This map shows the geographic extent of existing and in progress 3DEP data acquisition projects as of September 2020. And at that time, there were high resolution elevation data available or in progress for more than 74% of the nation. Now, with all that data, it's really important to know where to find it. So all the 3DEP products and services are available through the national map. And these include digital elevation models at various horizontal resolutions, elevation source and associated data sets, an elevation point query service, a bulk point query service. All 3DEP products are available free of charge and without use restrictions. So if you visit the 3DEP homepage and you're interested in downloading or visualizing our data, click on the Access Data. That's the lower left green button. And you're taken to the National Map homepage. And this is where you can navigate to our topo maps, as Rob mentioned, both the current geo PDFs or the historical topo maps. You can download GIS data from staged products. We've got standard DEMS. If you want a seamless nation, we've got 2 arcsecond or 1 arcsecond or 1/3 arcsecond. If you're interested in more project-based, right, it'll be seamless within the project. We have legacy 1/9 arcsecond or 1 meter and 5 meter. Remember, it's IFSAR data in Alaska. We also provide the source data, so the LiDAR point clouds or the source DEMS in their original product resolution. We've got digital surface models, ortho-rectified radar intensity imagery. There's a lot of resources there. And we even offer GIS data download applications, and we've got direct access via FTP and Amazon's cloud. So we try to make these data as accessible as possible. And users now have the option to work with massive LiDAR data sets without pulling them to their local machines. And these data are part of the open data registry provided by Amazon Web Services, similar to the Landsat archive. Finally, on this page, we also offer applications and visualization services. So if I click on the apps and services, which is the lower right green button, I can access links to training videos on how to use the National Map products and services, help pages that encourage you to integrate any and all of the map services offered through the National Map within your own mapping applications. From this page, we can also access different viewers and services, APIs, product lists, elevation point query services, even raster conversion tools. Now, if you click on the viewers option, which is the lower left green button, you can access the National Map Viewer, the 3DEP Demonstration Elevation Viewer, and the 3DEP LiDAR Explorer. Now, HOBU Inc. and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers collaborated with Amazon Web Services, and they organized the LiDAR point cloud data as entwined point tile resources so you can visualize them. And I really encourage you to go try these visualization tools out, because having the ability to dig into data before you have to pull it down to your machine can really save you time and really save resources. Also on this page, you'll find mobile information is available. So a download client or instructional videos, a national map webinar, and even step-by-step instructions. I mentioned national map services. So if you'd clicked on the services button instead of the viewers, you'd access this page. Did you know that we offer over 40 web map services for you to use in your applications? From this page, you can also check on the uptime status of each service and even subscribe to receive notifications about upcoming service changes. So now that you know what websites to visit to access 3DEP data and services and what visualization tools are available, I wanted to hand the presentation over to George so he can tell you more about the 3DEP progress in Tennessee.
Okay, thank you, Zan. So there's my contact information. So if you just go ahead and go to the next slide, please. First off, I'd like to thank the Tennessee Department of Finance and Administration, Strategic Technology Solutions, Dennis Peterson, our GIO in the state, and Paul Dudley on his staff. If you are not familiar with these folks, I highly suggest that you get to know them. They're a wealth of knowledge for our state in Tennessee. And so with that being said, we've been very active in Tennessee. Dennis has put together a very concise and active program to help coordinate the collection of LiDAR data in the state. We're pretty much have the state covered. In this graphic here, you can see Shelby County was not part of the West Tennessee collection. Shelby County was a cooperative agreement. Some of you are probably familiar with Rick Stagg. Rick coordinated that effort. It was a 2017 collect. So I can't remember if Zan mentioned earlier, but 3DEP is on an 8-year cycle. So roughly another 4 or 5 years, we'll be looking to possibly revisit Shelby County. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Next slide, please. I was clicking over here on my screen. So these are some of the folks that have contributed to this effort that Dennis has put together. TDOT, great partner in the state. They step up and do a lot of great things for the state of Tennessee. So this just kind of gives you an example here of the total investment in the state of Tennessee from all the different funding partners. So next slide, please. And this just breaks it down. Dennis did a really awesome job. He presents this at the TNGIC conference quite frequently. So some of you may have seen some of this before, but it just kind of shows you the effort that's put on in the state of Tennessee. Tennessee is a very well coordinated state. I have to definitely give you all a lot of kudos up there. Next slide, please. And so this one here, this one just kind of gives you an update showing the different collection years. As Zan pointed out on the US Interagency Elevation Inventory, you can look at that also. But they also have that on the on the Department of Finance website where you can look at that. Zan also mentioned that USGS, the National Geospatial Program, we offer a lot of online training. Also, Paul Dudley, wealth of knowledge there in the state, has been very active out giving LiDAR training classes. I attended one a few years ago. It was well attended by the state. Lots of kudos from all the folks in attendance. You can also go, next slide, please. You can also go right here, and I always tell people to grab your camera or take a screen capture, get a click on this. If you go to the Tennessee website here, you can download the data. You know, USGS, we like you to download it from the national map, but at times our servers may be down and you need the data right away, you can get it directly from there. And also, Dennis has a great staff there. Chris Meeks there is the gentleman who runs pretty much the database. And Chris, and anytime I've had people requesting the data when they could not get it from the national map, Chris has always stepped up and helped those folks. So and we have TNGIC up there. If you're not familiar with the Tennessee Geographic Information Council, I definitely recommend you get to know those folks. I think the conference this year will probably be virtual, and it may be coming up here in the next month, or not next month, but in a few months or so. So that's kind of the end of my presentation. I'm always telling folks that I'm here for you. You may not know me since I do not sit in the state, but I'm just a little drive short of Memphis. So, you know, once Zan and I get to start traveling again, I've attended the Magic conference before in Memphis, so look forward to that being started back up. So I think I'm going to stop there, Zan. Hopefully, when I present, I like to have a lot of interaction with folks. So I did see a couple questions pop up in the chat. I think Sam Moffat answered a couple of them possibly, but I will stop talking there, and hopefully y'all have some questions.
Yep, and I just had one more slide to kind of summarize what George was saying there, and also just give you some of our vision, right? It always, I at least am looking forward, right? What's next? And the NGP vision for our geospatial future is really based on productive partnerships. And from George, you know, giving all that information, clearly there's a productive partnership with Tennessee, and that's fantastic. So thank you for productive partnerships in programs like 3DEP, because with nationwide baseline data, we'll be able to support so much science and research. And that's when we can really support geospatial integration, right? For the GIS users in Tennessee, that's really important. And for the nation at large, from hydrography and elevation to man-made systems or groundwater and bathymetry, all of this will help us build a national terrain model, which will allow us to finally realize a 3D nation. So thanks, George, so much for providing that information and update. And I'm with George. I like to leave as much time as possible for interaction. So thank you guys so much for this opportunity to share an overview of the 3D elevation program and provide that update. So any questions, we'd be happy to take them.
Yes, thank you both so much. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat. I will be looking at the questions in there, so I can speak to those. But if you have any questions, just feel free to unmute and talk away.
So while we're waiting on questions, Zan, if you go back to the previous slide.
Sure.
So on this slide here, you know, we're talking about inland bathymetry, and so just kind of a little seed to plant with some of you all up there. Some things that I've been in talks with Dennis about are possibly trying to do a project in the state. We're always looking for that. Right now, we don't really necessarily have funding designated towards that, but we're looking to eventually get there. So, you know, if you all have something in mind, that definitely helps me out when we get to the point where we kind of open up with, like in the broad agency announcement, looking to do inland bathymetry. As somebody just asked, oh, never mind. I'm getting too many chats popping up here on me. Somebody's asking me a tax question. It's like, okay, it's all right. Wrong job. But then the other thing I've really been trying to work on really hard in the state is our national hydrography data set. As Zan mentioned, we're trying to go to more of a 3D model covering the Earth's surface. And so Tennessee, with our 24K high-res NHD, doesn't really always model what's actually on the ground for some of you folks who are doing any type of terrain modeling or anything like that. So I'll quit yakking and hopefully y'all got some questions.
Tom, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, so this is Tom Lawrence. Oh, actually, I can turn on my video here. So I actually went to the national map thing online, and I was zooming into it, and it seems like you get to a point where it just kind of disappears. I guess that means I over zoomed. Is there anything you can do about that, or is there a different layer I should go to be able to see more detail, or not?
Well, are you trying to download the data or just view the data?
I'm just
As in the
viewing it
first
on the
question.
screen.
Okay, so let me, since we've got time, and I never like to try this, hold on to your hats. I'm going to try and actually show you guys our viewer, because I think that might be more, if you just are interested in viewing our data, that might be more appropriate for what you're trying to do. So let me share this quickly, make sure it's the right screen, share. So I had mentioned the viewers applications in tools page. Apologies, let's close that. And from here, if we go to this elevation viewer, that is where you might have more interest. So if I do a quick search, say you're interested in Memphis, I can just pull up Memphis, Tennessee here.
So I guess, as I go into it, I don't even have the same beginning page that you have. Should I be seeing the same thing online?
So if I back up all the way to National Geospatial Program, this is where, okay, that one's not found, go figure, USGS.
So you're not on nationalmap.gov.
I wasn't, no. So the national map, that's where you can download the data. That really tells you what's available.
Oh, okay.
And you go into data download. So that's where I just wanted to bring you to where you can view the data. If you really are just interested, right, in checking
I
out.
should go to
We've
USGS.
got, right, you've got the viewers, you've got the national map and information like that. So that's where you can hop over and make sure that you get to the data and viewers, right? You want to learn more about 3Dep. Okay, cool. Let's check out 3Dep. We've got the LiDAR Explorer. So that's another cool one. So if I go back here, so if you, sorry.
So I guess I don't mean to interrupt here. So if you go to USGS.gov, what should I click on first to get to where you are? I'm just trying to catch up.
Core science systems, you can either come up into the search, or you can just, from USGS.gov, go into 3Dep. You know what? Let me post some great links in the chat for you. How do I do that?
Okay.
I keep them handy on a little sticky note on my desk. So watch out, they're coming at you. They include good geospatial resources. So the first one is 3Dep. That will take you to that home page. The second one's about the broad agency announcement. We've got the collaborate with others, the user engagement site. So if you start from that 3Dep page.
Okay, I'm at 3Dep.
Yep. And then that's where you can go into the learn more. And from the left, the data download and visualization, the access data. And that's where you can see get maps, you can do the GIS, you can do the apps and services. So it's a really useful one. So the LiDAR Explorer, when you click on it, that one will let you actually play with the LiDAR point cloud and the digital elevation models. But the 3Dep viewer is actually letting you look at some pre-done data sets. So say I was interested in the slope map for Memphis, or an aspect map, or stretched hill shade, or contours where I can adjust what contour interval I'm seeing. I could zoom to different areas. I can come down, measure, download, add my own data. Again, that's the 3Dep viewer. But what I think is really cool is the LiDAR Explorer, if you guys haven't played with this. So say I want to say, like, oh, show me where LiDAR is available, but I really want to, again, check out Memphis. So I'll come in here, click on Memphis. It brings me there. And I see this area and I'm like, okay, like I'm going to click here. And within here, here's that Shelby County that George was talking about. And by clicking on this green icon, I can visualize this data in 3D. Now, I was playing with this earlier, and it might look familiar to you. This opens a Poetry viewer. And what it should show you if it loads is the 3D LiDAR point cloud. And this is what I used to get that last screen grab of the thank you slide. So it's going to take a little bit to load. If I use the little hamburger in the upper left, I can open up the different tools. So right now I'm viewing a point budget of 10 million tools. So that's probably why it's taking a bit of time to render, but also based on the coloring and the density, I'm looking at a lot of points. So if I scroll down, I can use this and I can say, first of all, let's look at the elevation instead of the intensity, because sometimes it's a little bit easier. We're more familiar with that. And let me change it to this gradient scheme. Well, then I can come down to filters and I see that I'm looking at all the classes of the data, whether it was, classed or not. So let's go ahead and turn off everything but bare earth, because I don't know about you guys, but that one I can usually do a lot with. So I'm turning off my available filters. And this is what's nice to see if the data is going to be of use to you. But now I'm seeing that, hey, this is all kind of green, and that's not really telling me much. So I can come up to this elevation range slider and adjust my elevation until things and features really start to make themselves apparent. And again, this is just a visualization tool, so you didn't have to pull down this entire Shelby County data set to your computer and say, is this data going to be helpful? So yeah, I'm just pulling these sliders. I'm sure I could have spent a lot more time playing with this data, and there's a lot more data that's available, but I think it's a good place to start if like you were saying, Tom, you want to go in and just, kind of dig around some data sets. So do those viewers help? Is that more what you were looking for? We could do a quick demo of the national map viewer as well, if you'd like.
I don't know about Tom, but I could sit there and play with that for hours.
Yeah, I could definitely, it's very cathartic.
Yeah, you start geeking out on this stuff real easy.
Yeah, so again, that's why I really encourage you guys to go check out this LiDAR Explorer. Again, you can say, a DEM, where DEMs exist, preview a DEM on the map. And more data sets are getting added to this. So if you see a data set that is available in the national map, but isn't on the LiDAR Explorer, again, this is that collaboration between HOBU Inc. and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They're working to get this up there because these are these end-to-end point tile services. So just be patient, or shoot us an email and we'll send it along the chain to see if we can get it added for you.
And one other thing I might add there, when Zan had up the different options that you could select a while ago, it showed buildings, and we do have building footprints in Tennessee. I unfortunately cannot remember, since Shelby County was a co-op, we would not be hosting that on the national map if we do have the building footprints. But again, you could go to the nationalmap.gov and you can download those from there.
Yeah, I was playing in that side too. Tennessee, well done. You can tell you had your GIS users in mind when you made this site. It's really intuitive, and I really appreciate the data that's accessible, but also the training and the tutorials, because I think that's half the battle, right? Sometimes, and back to the point of the viewers, or you were on the national map viewer and you could zoom in, but you could tell that the zoom level was reduced for display purposes. We've got a lot of training videos and tutorials about how to use the national map, and more are coming along every day, I feel like. So I think that's a great resource too, is if a tool isn't, working the way you think it should, please just send us some suggestions, because the best tool is the one that's used, and we like to see our tools being used.
I have another question, unless somebody else has one first. Okay. Well, so this is Tom again. So I was just looking at the map of like I'm at the 3-depth LiDAR Explorer map. And it seems like, well, at least in Tennessee, like Tipton County and Davidson County are not in that. And I just wondered, are they stored somewhere else?
No, they just probably haven't made it yet. Again, not all of the holdings that we've got at the national map have made it up to the Amazon Web Service or the end-to-end point tile service. So I didn't catch the 2 counties you just listed, but if you're interested, I'm happy to send them along to the gentleman that facilitates making sure those are included. So it could either be that we don't have them in the National Map repository, or George, if you know offhand that we do have them, it may just be that they haven't been pushed to the LiDAR Explorer yet, but I'm happy to look into it for you.
Yeah, if you just go back one more slide there.
Sure.
Okay. Oh,
Zan, can you go back one more slide?
On the PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, I'm sorry, on the PowerPoint, yes. On
Sure,
presentation.
just 1 second. Let's start sharing that for you.
And I saw Dennis just posted something in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, he's saying Tipton County isn't available yet. It was just acquired in January. Final delivery is set for August to the state. So that was one of the things that I wanted to point out when I was talking about downloading data from the state. Lots of times the state will get the data loaded up before we get it into the national map, because we're working on a whole national cover. So we have lots of data sets being loaded into the national map. And sometimes it can take several months. In the past, it's been up to 6 months. And right now with COVID, all of our staff are working remotely. So we're all struggling with issues with internet connectivity. And when we're trying to definitely upload large data sets, that pipe gets squeezed down pretty quick. So those are part of the West Tennessee Collect. So as Dennis mentioned there, we should be getting those probably there at the state sooner than we will in the national map.
Thanks for that.
so I noticed in Alabama that Madison County is also not included. That's Huntsville. Does Alabama have a similar thing to Tennessee where they post stuff by the state?
No, they do not, unfortunately.
Okay.
Been working on that over there. So hopefully within maybe the next year or so, they will have a form of a clearinghouse. It's underway, under construction, so to speak, right now. That project there was Madison County. It was also a co-op. So it will be, it was flown this last leaf off, and it is scheduled also for delivery later this summer. So again, kind of give you all an idea of how this works. Once the data has been acquired and processed by the contractor doing the work, then it's shipped to USGS, the National Geospatial Program, to the National Geospatial Technical Operations Center, one of the NG TOCs, probably Rolla, Missouri, where I used to live. And then it will be validated there. And if it's accepted through validation, then it will be delivered to the funding partners, and then we'll start uploading it into the national map.
Yeah, I know the Tennessee site's great. I use that a lot. I mean, it's one of the
Yes.
best sites I've seen for any state.
Every time I'm out speaking to people, I always point at this one and say, if you're wanting to get started, here's the model to look at. And Dennis has got a great staff that are probably more than willing to, hope Dennis isn't slapping me around for saying this, but would probably be more than willing to help you out if they can.
Thank you.
I have a question. Hey, George, this is probably directed at you. The Tennessee study is great. There's a few of us in our audience that are in North Mississippi. I work for DeSoto County, and I see at least 2 others I know are in North Mississippi and are participants. I'm going to share something real quick.
So we do have a great clearinghouse in Mississippi also.
Yeah. Hey, so I'm going to share. So this is on the NOAA site for showing what LiDAR is available for DeSoto County, Mississippi. So Memphis is kind of right up above there. And the most recent project for Mississippi is showing 2018 NRCS Mississippi Delta. As you can see, status is still in progress. The last I've heard is that they had to refly some areas that were flooded. Do y'all know anything about what's going on with that? Because we were still using the elevation data from 12 years ago.
Right. So yes, so we did have some issues where they had to go back and refly for flooding on the Mississippi. And so, what that does is we collect this data during a leaf off season. So, this, if you were to zoom out, you would see that that's a very large project. It covers the entire Delta. If you were to kind of click on, there you go. That's the project there that you're talking about. So it encompasses that entire area. And so once we had the issues with the flooding, by the time that was realized, we were out of the leaf off season. Plus, then we also have to wait to make sure that we do not have flooding again so that they can go and reacquire those areas to refly them. So that's the entire holdup there. Right now, they've got it all processed and it's being delivered to NGTOC to be validated again. And then once we get done with that, it will be shared out through the national map. And then also for the folks here in Mississippi, we do have, if you're familiar with Maris, you can go to Maris. I see at least one head shake there. You can go to Maris and you can also download the data there. Steve Walker is there at Maris, and Jim Stile. They're kind of the Jim Stile is kind of Dennis's opposite, and then Steve Walker would be similar to Paul Dudley and Chris Meeks. So we've got I'm fortunate here in Mississippi also got a great group of folks down here. So I know so with Magic, we're kind of talking this whole Memphis area, and we have folks in Mississippi. So we do, if you're familiar with MAST, M-A-S-T, Mississippi Automated Spatial Technologies, we have, I think it's a quarterly get together virtual now. They also put on a conference, and it's usually in November. So that's another good way. I know Scott Trapolino's usually at those. You see Scott just about everywhere I go. So if you need any information, Scott's definitely another person to call on.
Okay, so real quick, just to kind of wrap up from that, do we have an idea? My boss wants to know when that's going to be available, that we could actually put it on a map or a series of maps. But do we know when that Mississippi Delta? I know you said that the processing is complete and is being delivered, but any idea when we'd be able to download it?
Yeah, it's kind of hard for me to give you an exact, date. I'm telling most folks, hopefully, maybe early summer. And what I would also suggest for folks, if you do need the data and we do not have it hosted immediately, it will probably be on Maris before it will be in the national map. But if it's not at either place and it's been delivered on a hard drive, hopefully I will get a copy of it. And I do the hard drive shuffle every once in a while. So we can ship the hard drive shuffle, get that going to you. And there's also another collect in that area there that is available. It's just mainly Sunflower County. It was flown roughly in the same time frame. And I don't know if you're interested in that or not, but it is not available in the national map yet because it's what we're calling contributed data. It was not actually acquired by USGS. It was acquired by the USDA Agricultural Research Center. Are they in Stoneville? They're up there someplace close to you around Oxford. I can't remember right off the top of my head where they're at, but if you're interested in that, we could get you that also.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And I guess the only other thing I would mention is you had mentioned that Tennessee Geographic Information Council, that kind of is like magic for the whole state of Tennessee, and their conference, I did put it in the comments or the chat, their conference it's a virtual conference at the end of April. It looks like we had a couple TNJ board members in our Zoom room here, but I don't see them anymore. They must have had to go. But their conference registration is open, so you'll see some of us at that as well in the Zoom room. So does anybody else have any questions? Okay.
Well, I'll ask a question. Like I said, I don't want to take anybody else's time, but I always have questions if nobody else does.
All right, but keep it quick, Tom. We got 359 here.
Well, this might be more complex for 359. I was just, as you were talking about the delta, you know, it's so flat there. I wonder, even with LiDAR, like, how accurate do you feel like you get the elevation? I work in water, so I work in slopes. Do you even get the slope out there? Because sometimes you can't even see what the slope is when it's raining.
Yeah, it's actually a very good data set. So what I would recommend is you look at our specs for the data to see if it meets your needs. That was collected at the QL2. So if you were to compare that to the data set that was collected in, I believe it's when I first moved down here, I think it was like 2009, 2010, Army Corps of Engineers collected that. It's night and day. I mean,
Cool.
This is night and day difference. So I think it'd be very beneficial for you. It's going to be a very large data set. So depending on what type of work you do.
Well, cool. I'm looking forward to it when it comes out.
Yep.
That's it for me.
And don't ever hesitate to give me a shout. I'm always available.
All right, if anybody else does have any questions, feel free to direct, as George said, direct them to him or Zan with the contact information they provided. And on that note, thank y'all so much for the super informative presentation. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And we will, we usually post these on our YouTube channel, if that's all right with y'all, Zan and George.
Sure.
Okay. And then once again, if any of y'all missed the announcement at the beginning, we are doing our Magic After Hours social, virtual social tonight, starting in about 1 hour. And that link is, it's a separate link, so don't come back to this Zoom link. If Michelle, could you post that in the chat if you could get access to that? And again, it's open from 5 to 8. Just drop in anytime, and just pull out your magic pint glass that you might have got at the last Magic Conference, and that was in the goodie bag. And come join us for some camaraderie and some trivia and games. And on that note, thank you all so much for joining us today. I don't know if we'll get that Zoom link in the chat.
I cannot find it. I'm sorry, Rob.
That's okay. I kind of sprung that one on you. It is it's in the email that went out this morning. If anybody has any questions, just email me or just email Magic Memphis and we'll get it to you. All right. Thanks y'all for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you so much.
Stay safe out there.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good evening.
All right. Good night.
Bye.